My official prediction, I think Izzy catches him in the fourth with a question mark kick and puts him out. We're back. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Unfiltered Breakdown. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Today we are talking about UFC 305 in Perth, Australia. The title fight is Dricus Du Plessis. I think that's how the French say it. Versus Israel.
To be fair, we have our South African friend who kept telling us that it's Dricus.
Oh, it's Dricus. Okay, well, let me go back then. We got Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. I know I just said Du Plessis, correct. And then we have Kaikar France versus Steve Erceg, Gamrot versus Hooker, and then we got the big boys down there. We got Tuivasa, the Shoey, that's my guy right there, versus Rozenstruik. So those are the four fights we're going to go through today. So the first fight we're going to talk about is we got Dricus, make sure I say that correctly, Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. So Dricus is 21-2. He's the current champion against Israel Adesanya, who's 24-3. Dricus is 6'1", Adesanya is 6'4". The reach is about 76 to 80 inches. This is going to be a great fight. Steven, initially, what's your first thoughts about this fight?
My first thought,
I should say.
Yeah, I mean, the first thought is we have someone who is such a refined striker in Israel Adesanya, known to be, he was the king of the middleweight division for years, right? He kind of took over the mantle of Anderson Silva, but he had a stumble against Strickland, lost his title there, and had a lot of really boring fights in it, to where there's a lot of thought of Adesanya not being active, not really having what it takes to throw down in a fight against Dricus, who's kind of in the opposite weird, in that Israel is supposed to be so technical, he's not willing to throw down, but we see him do it every now and again. Dricus is in the too willing to be crazy and dive into stuff, but does really small technical things in between. So they're like flip side of each other in that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, just looking at this fight on paper, I think, obviously I think a lot of the fans and the hype is behind Israel for this fight. Obviously, granted how big of his reign was. I mean, really his only losses were he moved up to light heavyweight and lost to Blachowicz, who was way bigger than he was at fight night.
Oh yeah.
Got out wrestled, which we'll get to in a second. He lost to Pereira, which is, I mean, that was his kryptonite for the longest time. And then eventually came back and knocked him out, and that was the hell of a fight. And then he lost to Strickland, which in my opinion was one of the weirdest fights I think I've watched him ever fight. And I don't know if he just had the off night. I guess this fight will really show where he's at mentally. I think he's too small to move up to 205 as far as body type, not necessarily height. But Dricus is, his last 5 fights are Strickland, Whitaker, Brunson, Till, and Tavares, and he won 2 by decision, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission.
Yeah,
so I mean, he has a pretty good.
In that is that it was Robert Whitaker that he ended up TKO.
Knocking out. You're right.
Yeah,
and Brunson at the end of his career, but I mean, still
that one less credit for.
And the Strickland fight was very close.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think Strickland has been knocked out. We saw him knocked out by Pereira, and I think I almost don't know what to think of it as far as he has a lot of output and he has a lot of good wrestling. But Israel Adesanya is just I feel his next level as far as striking is concerned.
Definitely the dynamic of that power and explosiveness versus the pure finesse. Right. Adesanya is that pure finesse and movement and a lot of the basic fundamental martial arts skills. Or Dricus throws that out the window sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I think just kind of looking at some of his little fights, he throws some weird angles. And there's a fighter, and I forget who we had talked about him previously, that throws weird angles too. I know obviously Nick and Nate throw weird angles as well.
I think the person actually was Usyk. Well, that was one of the major ones. Was talking about his movement, his step out to the angles, and how that was going to affect Fury, and that he was going to step outside the foot.
He'll throw an uppercut, but he throws it at a 45-degree angle rather than at a 90, which is interesting. But Dricus does a lot of that as well. I noticed when he was fighting Strickland, he had a lot of these weird shots where it was hitting Strickland because Strickland wasn't ready for it. He was waiting for a hook or, something here, not at 45s, at the 45-degree angles. But as far as striking is concerned, like, let's get into Dricus first. What do you like about Dricus' striking?
So I think, kind of was mentioning, right, he is someone who is so defined by his kind of physical nature so far in MMA, right? It blew everyone's mind how much he ran over Robert Whittaker because everyone thought like he was just so dependent on being physically strong, being fast, and he looked like he was gasping for air after the first round in every fight that went past it, right? Everyone thought like, oh, he's going to get past it or Whittaker was going to be able to hold him off. We got to see Whittaker. People give some slack to him to be like he might be, more chinny, but man, that dude took bombs from Yoel Romero. That dude has took damage and stayed standing, right? He is a strong wrestler. Like, he's not super big for the division, but really built himself up to it. Strong dude, strong base. I mean, one of the funniest moments I had was when Romero rocked him. His immediate reset was to like shoulder check Romero instead of punching him. So it's like, oh, the rugby loaded in his brain first before all the striking, right? But DDP passed the test of all those. And then he went against Strickland, who was as you mentioned, that reserved fighter made to go 20 rounds if he could, because he's going to throw light jabs and little teeps forever. And everyone thought, oh, DDP is going to get tired. Oh, the teeps and all that stuff are going to get him to the body and he's going to break down. And DDP kept it up.
He did gas out a little bit, though, at the end.
But that's the weird thing.
For granted.
Is even if he's tired and breathing terribly,
he'll still throw.
He'll just keep
and he has
going.
Power. Yeah.
It transfers through well. So how does he use that in his striking? Right. It's messy. He moves it. I mean, there was a long time he was really known for those like blitzes forward. Right. And that's where I really have a question of like how powerful his striking is. Right. He does have quite a few KOs/TKOs. He dropped Whittaker with a jab. Right. But I really wonder if this is kind of the difference of those snappy strikes versus being able to move your body and like physically run into someone a lot, right? When you blitz someone and move your whole weight into them, that's very different than that snap punch flash TKO, right?
I would argue for him it's more of an accumulation of punches. That seems it's not a one-shot knockout power. It's like, I don't think it's like a Pineda where he'll kick you once and that's it. Like Night, like Strickland got hit once, that was kind of it. Yeah, and we saw it in his last title fight with in the light heavyweight division. But I think Du Plessis is one of those guys that can overwhelm you, and with his physical prowess, can finish fights, and essentially that's what he has going for him. And I don't think he's small for the division, or I think you said it because he wasn't that big.
Huge. Whittaker's the one who's like,
Whittaker. We're talking about Whittaker. Okay, I was like, because Dricus is pretty thick. He's a thick boy.
Yeah. Dricus is huge, right? He's just so built up. And like that's where when he dropped Whittaker with the jab, that was another thing he showed was good timing with it, right? For him being so messy and not really throwing punches in the traditional technical way, he has a good understanding of the fight game, right? He was prepared to just time Whittaker every time he wanted to do his own blitzes in. And with that, with him running in and him putting his weight and really stepping into that jab, he's a switch hitter. He really does favor that kind of like southpaw side a lot, and he really likes the southpaw jab. It's such a weird area because in the southpaw attack where we say those hands kind of fighting each other, it's usually not the thing you want people to be doing all the time.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting is something I was going to bring up too because we were talking about the Strickland fight.
Yeah,
he was hitting Strickland with some nice leg kicks as well.
Yeah,
I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that too because I know.
100%, right? Because Strickland has traditionally been very good at stopping leg kicks. When Adesanya went against him, Adesanya really depends on his long range attacks, right? Adesanya is all about keeping that range. And if you're just going to sit there in front of them, he will shoot out the jab. He'll shoot out the leg kick. He'll switch stances, see whichever one is more favorable to him. He will land a little leg kick, switch step, hit you with the jab, and then step out, right? He wants to run out. He will do big movements, circle all the way out to the other side of the cage if he needs to. But somehow, Strickland really messed him up in just simple things of not really giving Adesanya openings, holding his hands up high, doing the shell, only throwing out little jabs, doesn't give a lot for Adesanya to counter up top. And on the feet, Strickland just kind of marched his knees up, and he picks his knees up like it's kind of half hiding. It could be a check that he's bringing his leg up for, or it can be the front kick, the little teep to the body or legs. And he would just march forward, prepare on that. And it baffled Adesanya. But against DDP, Dricus, those things didn't work out the same way, right?
No.
Strickland was still very defensive conscious and didn't get hit so much as you would expect for all these flurries DDP was doing. But DDP really controlling the center of the cage, pushing Strickland back. Strickland wasn't doing a lot of like smart counter punching and all that. So DDP would kind of push him back. He'd get away, block a lot, but didn't have the opening. And with him going backwards, it didn't really give him the same opportunity to just march and throw out front kicks. That left DDP the chance to throw out more leg kicks, have Strickland be more uncomfortable, not have those same tools. And I think with that, basically, DDP did the strategy that Strickland did to Adesanya.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like, that's the weird dynamic. He crowded him, he got close, it would kind of make him feel uncomfortable, hit all these different targets and made him sit there. And that's kind of the dynamic. Can he do this to Adesanya, right? The big difference between them is where Strickland is so defensive minded, keeps his hands up, is always aware for the leg kicks. Dricus leaves a lot of openings, right?
Well, and that's one of the things I was going to talk about is that, so like usually Sean likes to push the fight and be the aggressive and just, he's in his shell, the Philly shell, he likes to call it, and throw shots and kicks and work in that area. But DDP had him back on his back foot the entire fight. And he was landing leg kicks, which was causing Sean, obviously, had visible damage on his body.
Yeah.
But Dricus leaves himself exposed a lot.
Yeah, and his face at the end of that fight. Brutal.
But even though he throws awkward, he throws like this sometimes, where he's throwing out and his face is right there. So he's vulnerable to a lot of eating shots. It's whether or not he can take those shots, which he can, but Izzy and Pereira, those are just different kinds of strikers. And his movement wasn't that good, in my personal opinion, based on what I saw. I just didn't feel like his head movement was the greatest, which is what I'm saying is I think he can be vulnerable to shots. And that's why I know it's kind of a little transition here, but I'm kind of interested in what you think, or what Israel Adesanya's strong points are of his striking and how they match up together in the striking department.
Oh, yes. So Israel Adesanya was kind of known basically as the smartest striker in the UFC for quite a few years, right? That was what made it so shocking that Strickland was able to just clown on him that fight, because everyone thought like, oh, Strickland comes in with this simple plan, Adesanya is going to figure the way out. And he didn't. Just by taking away his A game, that major thing of leg kicks and jabs, threw him off, right? But the other things he really does, it's a lot of it is all on his footwork. Right. He really likes to keep that space. He will switch his step kind of within kicks and kind of stepping out, especially when he's getting crowded. He's normally been very good at getting off the cage, right? He's very active. He will throw a lot of feints. And when he gets close to the cage, he'll feint and switch directions. He'll fake one way, go the other way. He's always willing to go whichever way can get him out. But Strickland really played on that to march him down and make him waste a lot of energy with that. What normally Adesanya has been able to do is, well, I guess one thing to hit the elephant in the room for Adesanya, some of his boring fights. I feel like part of it isn't always his fault, right? Some of it, it is his fault in that he doesn't really have so many options to break someone down, not engaging with them the way he wants to, right? He clowned on someone like Paulo Costa. Costa was very rudimentary, just walking at him. And with that, he was just open to get leg kicked, jabbed, and just once Adesanya saw that, he had nothing, follow up, feel more comfortable hitting him. From there, I feel like a lot of fighters were like embarrassed or like didn't want to be embarrassed by getting blown out by Adesanya and got them to kind of like not engage him. Jared Cannonier was someone in that where he basically just didn't engage Izzy for a long time. Yoel Romero didn't engage
that
him
was
in that.
famous, one of the most famous ones, where it's just like one of the boringest fights you ever saw.
Yeah.
And well, that's kind of like where my question brings up too. It's like, Izzy has a lot of these. I mean, I wouldn't say he has punching power. I think his power comes from a lot of his kicks. And I think like same as we said with Dricus, where it's an accumulation. Izzy's not really a one punch kind of guy to knock you out. It's going to be an accumulation over time.
Well, I think it's also his.
He does have a great question mark kick though. His question mark kick could probably put somebody else. And that's what I'm saying. I think his kickboxing and Muay Thai background is his advantage in the striking department. And to me, when I'm looking at both of them in a matchup, right? Like I would say Dricus is probably stronger. He could probably take more shots. We'll get into wrestling a little bit in a second. But as far as like if I saw them standing, I mean, I think if Izzy catches him with a head kick.
Oh yeah. No matter how strong Dricus's chin is, because it's been unmovable yet, right? He got hit with elbows coming in, like the dude's been unbreakable so far when it comes to his chin. Getting kicked is another monster for that.
Right.
Yeah, Izzy does change up his targets a lot. Dricus really likes to have a high card, and he'll just eat shots on his head when he's coming in. That's kind of leaves that opening for Izzy to kind of feel himself a bit, get excited to be like, oh, I can play with him, right? Oh, he's going to have his hands up. Let me switch to the legs. Let me switch to the body. And when he's doing that, that kind of leaves, when you can leave him more confused, your opponent, it's going to open up a lot more for Izzy. Because basically in that traditional sense, he does have like every kick and every strike in the book, right? He has it all.
Right.
He has the capability to do it all. Whether he really uses it all the time or not is the other question. Because if he's able to stay on the outside and just have you chase him and play with you, he's comfortable doing that. And that's kind of where that criticism came for him for so long, that he wouldn't really push to land the bigger shot afterwards. But that's kind of where the Pereira fight comes in, where Pereira walked him, Izzy beat him most of the rounds in their first MMA fight.
Well,
he even beat him a lot in their kickboxing.
And caught him right at the end. I mean,
right. Fifth round, Pereira saved his...
Chama.
Chama, man. Dude, but that dude, Pereira is a skilled striker himself, but you can see like he was much more simple than Izzy when it came to that skill set, and really knows his power is his bread and butter, right?
Right.
He doesn't need to he does the thing where he knows he doesn't need to throw super hard every shot, because if he knows if he's hitting you and sets it up, you're going to go out eventually. And, he felt it, he knew it, he felt that confidence in that second fight. That confidence killed him because he thought, oh, Izzy is going to fall apart. And in that moment, in that pressure, Izzy threw down with him hard, right? Like,
and that's where I keep going back and forth, because it's like Izzy has shown flashes of where he can have that power. I think it's more of like, if he, like you kind of said too, if he has it in him to want to do that, or if he's willing to fight the fire with fire to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I kind of like trying to just bring it back with the Dricus and Izzy. Like, personally, I think Izzy has the advantage as far as striking and technique.
Yeah.
I would probably give the power to Dricus. I can't even talk, excuse me.
Yeah.
To Dricus. But if you had to match up the striking, who are you going to give the advantage to in this fight?
I have to give it to Izzy, right? There's no way.
That's fair.
I think I have to give it to Izzy on this, just because he has more options. If the hard question is just because that last fight was so bad for him. If that fight didn't happen that way, if Izzy had just got blast knocked out in the first round, I don't think there would be a question that like everyone, I think more people would be favoring Izzy in this and just being like, oh, he got flash KO'd, he got caught, but he fell apart for multiple rounds.
I think a lot of that too, personally, like I said kind of at the beginning, like it was like a weird, like, I don't know if he had a motivation to do it, like
the mindset.
It was weird, and I think like I said, I think this fight will show us where he's at mentally. And I think that's going to be the big thing for him, because I think he has the skills. And I'm going to transition to grappling just because I'm kind of, obviously I think one has grappling, one doesn't. It's very obvious.
Yeah.
So I'll say from the top, like obviously Dricus has the ability or the advantage in grappling. Izzy is more of a takedown defense. But he has fought, and I guess the only reason why I'm going to talk about Israel Adesanya first with his grappling is just because it's not really existent. He did take down Pereira, but that's just, whatever. Like, that was whatever. Not that big of a deal. It's not really there. Call it for what it is. He has decent takedown defense, but he has been taken down. He has faced wrestlers like Vettori. I would say Vettori is a pretty decent wrestler, but I don't even think Vettori really tried that much to take him down, which is weird because usually a lot of these wrestlers aren't trying to take him down. But on the other hand, you have Dricus, who has that wrestling, but is he going to use it? Because a lot of these guys, like even Strickland technically has wrestling and he didn't use it.
Yeah, and that's part of where, like I mentioned, even some of those fighters who fought Izzy for so long kind of getting stunned by the movement and skills of him and not wanting to get embarrassed. Vettori was someone in this setup where he's another strong dude in the division. But the problem is he either walks you down with hands swinging or he walks you down obviously going for a shot.
Right.
And with something like that, Izzy was able to get, he can see the shot coming, he can set up, get his wide base up. Even with that, Vettori would still get him down a few times, right? Like just being able to overpower him, grab him, get him on the fence. He couldn't keep him down. Izzy was good at instantly trying to make space, start to get up, use the wall walk. Izzy in times has on the opportunity just thrown up like a triangle when he fought Gastelum, but that was crazy. Well, it's not something he's really going for. He wants to get up or just wants to be safe from the ground. When those Jan Blachowicz took him down, obviously way bigger than him by probably 30 to 40 pounds heavier than him on that fight night, right? Dricus does have that interesting mix to have because what he also likes to do, in those blitzes, he really does crash into people a lot. And with that, once you're in there, he does like to grab the heads and just go for trips, right? Whitaker is someone who traditionally has very strong takedown defense, very powerful. We talked about him and Yoel Romero and other wrestlers. He was the anti-wrestler of the division. And he just got bodied by Dricus when he came in and just tripped him, threw him down like nothing, right?
Look at the specimen of a man. Look how big he is though compared to Rob. I mean, Rob is not the biggest for that division either, but just it's a whole nother animal,
that mix with the kind of craziness, right? When you can throw people off their base and throw people off with movement, kind of run into them, kind of confuse them, it really throws off, you setting up for that defense. And that really works for Dricus in getting a lot of his takedowns, right? He does so much going forward, blitzing you with stuff, hitting you with attacks, throwing different attacks at you. He's kind of always doing something, that's the shocking thing with his cardio and him being tired. He still is active in doing that, now you're moving back. You dodged a big swing from him and all of a sudden he's grabbing you by the head and just trying to body you down. Not some cool trip, not some leg trap like Islam Makhachev, nothing like that. He's just going to grab you, throw a leg, try to break up your balance a little bit. Break up your balance by a little bit and just throw you down. And from there, very active. He wants to ground and pound you. He's just doing damage. And he does do shockingly good work breaking through the guards on the ground, right? He's instantly trying to split the legs, make the space, step over. And when he's stepping over, he's instantly trying to do damage. And that's where a lot of his submissions came from, rear naked choke. A lot of it came from him just pummeling people and them, turning their back on him, right? And just going for it.
I'm an Israel Adesanya fan, but you would think Dricus would try to take down Israel. The only reason I'm kind of hesitant in saying that is because we've seen good wrestlers not try to take him down and try to stand with him.
Yeah.
And so for as good as Dricus is with his wrestling, in your opinion, just very quickly, do you think he is going to try to use that wrestling, or do you think he's going to try to go in there and try to knock him out?
I think so, because he does it with everybody. He blitzes forward. He'll do crazy level changes, basically squat butt to floor and go for a double leg. He does this same setup with everybody, right? Doesn't matter.
He used it on Strickland, but it wasn't anything crazy where it was oh, that changed the fight. I feel him on the feet did better against Strickland than on the ground.
But with something like that where just getting it down can win rounds. It can just switch up the target for Adesanya, right? If you leave him knowing, if you are too clear with what you're going to do every time, it's giving him more of a chance to figure you out and start to time you. Being able to switch it up and really make a messy fight for Adesanya, I think is really going to have him struggle. Because where DDP, I think, would be more vulnerable in rushing in, trying to grab you, you break the clinch and he's there. I think a lot of the time Adesanya's first instinct is to get out instead of punish him. in that. We see Adesanya get the moment and hype himself, throw down with people every now and again. But I think in something like this where we have to think also about these 5 rounds going, that I think there's a lot of rounds that Izzy can lose trying to be too slick, trying to be too tactical, dancing around it. That, he goes down for a minute and a half in a round and he's been going back for the rest of that round on the feet. That could be a round, even if he's landing on Dricus, that Dricus still wins it, right?
Right.
Because Dricus is going to get hit by jabs. Like he's going to.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah, he's gonna take the shots, and I think more like if I'm looking like at, I like to call them the keys of victory, right? The keys of victory.
Yeah.
So if you look at Dricus, it's gonna be to use that MMA background and rugby background, I guess, of being able to mix in your striking, and your wrestling or your grappling, and being able to put Izzy in situations where he's not gonna be comfortable. Ideally, he would like to keep him down and to work on the ground and beat him there, because that's where you're going to wear him down, make him use a lot of energy. If you're on top, obviously you're not using as much energy as the guy who's on the ground and taking all that weight.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to maybe get Izzy in the later rounds, because he's not really going to get tired. Izzy won't either, but we don't know with the wrestling because he hasn't been laid on for 5 rounds. Besides in the Blachowicz fight, he was gassed and mad. But whereas with the keys for victory for Izzy is going to be to stay on the outside, pick him apart, try to catch him with a nice kick. I don't know if he's going to be able to land a punch that's going to take Dricus out. I think it's going to have to be like a question mark kick or a spinning back kick or something where it's just like he doesn't see it coming. They always say the shots you don't see is the ones that hurt and the ones that put you out. And I think that's what Izzy needs to do. I just don't know if Izzy can do it.
The kind of intangible for DDP is though I kind of like harped on him being messy and doing crazy stuff and doing like really non-technical things. He has really adjusted for his last 2 fights a lot. He really changed his game up for Whitaker and really decided to favor the southpaw jab, see an opening, really just focus on timing Whitaker. And even though he wasn't as like technically skilled as him, that strategy really built out perfect to get him that win. Same thing with Strickland. He saw, hey, Strickland doesn't like to go back. I need to push him back. I need to commit to this game plan and do it. Right? I think Izzy has to be willing to kind of put himself in a little bit of danger, which might be harder at this point, right? His change of strategy would have to be like, I need to punish Dricus and sit there kind of in the pocket, hit him a few shots more and really get him more worried to like come in and to let Izzy control that. And I don't know if he's going to have that fully in him or have the physical power to make Dricus do that with whatever Dricus is going to be coming in with or adjustments he's going to have for Adesanya.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Actually, I'll let you ask you do your final prediction, your official prediction, and then.
All right, I think it's.
I'll say what I gotta say.
I think I'm going by very bloody Dricus Du Plessis 5th round decision.
5th round decision.
Yeah, I think he's going all the way. I think he's going to eat a lot of damage and just activity down at Izzy throughout those rounds.
My official prediction. I think Izzy catches him in the 4th with a question mark kick and puts him out. It'll be in the later rounds. It won't be early. It'll be in the later rounds. And the only reason why I say that, and that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. That's a spoiler. As the great Paul Heyman says, is I think that we've seen Dricus get tired, and Izzy does thrive in those later rounds. Dricus doesn't have the power like Pereira, like Chama does. Just call it for what it is. Chama's on another level. Yeah. And I think that's like the epitome of power in that division as far as like who's going to hit the hardest. Maybe wrestling's a little different, but I'm saying as far as like power. And I think if Izzy can survive those early rounds, he's going to be putting it on him at the end. And I think he can. The only way he's knocking him out, though, is with a leg kick. It has to be a leg kick.
Yeah.
And he'll finish it up, but I think it's going to be a leg kick that's going to get him to be stunned because I don't see anything else that's going to do it. So hey man, that's my official prediction. That's not even a prediction. That's a spoiler. Hey. That's a spoiler right there.
I'm excited to see it. I'm excited.
That's going to be a great fight. I'm excited.
It might blow my mind, man.
We didn't even say what time it's going to be, but it's in Australia. Hopefully, it's in American time. That's all I can say.
It is.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. So the second fight. So we have a total of 4 fights. So the second fight is a co-main. We have Kai France, who's 24-11, versus Steve Erceg, who's 12-2. If you're a repeat watcher of the podcast, you know that we did talk about Steve Erceg before when he fought Pantoja. So Kai is 5'4", and Steve Erceg's 5'8". The reach is about the same, 69 and 68. Their significant strikes per minute landed is pretty similar, about 4.5. And their takedown average is in favor of Erceg. But Erceg, like I said, if you're a watcher of our podcast, we did a breakdown of him versus Pantoja, and he had an excellent fight against Pantoja. That was probably one of the better fights I've seen in a bit. Like, I think it could have went either way. I think I still gave the edge to Pantoja, but if Erceg had another round or another couple minutes, I think would have been a whole nother story.
I mean, if he just didn't shoot for a takedown, it might have been a win for him. I mean, it was possibly even last round. He initiated a grappling exchange with Pantoja, one of the best grapplers in that division ever, probably. And it just led to him losing that round and possibly losing just a huge chance to be number 9 coming in for that title shot, just blowing everyone's mind with his performance.
And he had that. I really do think he had that fight. That was crazy. But he had lost to Brandon Moreno. But I can't really hold that against anybody, because Brandon Moreno is probably like 1B in that division. And Erceg, I think like we said, his only loss recently was against Pantoja. And he is a little newer in the UFC, so his resume, in our opinions, isn't as big, because Kai Kara has fought a lot of people in the division. But I think this is going to be an excellent, high-energy, fast-paced fight.
Oh, yeah. This is one of the sleeper ones that I'm really excited for. Unfortunately, Kai Kara France isn't really a big name, and he's been away for a little bit, or hasn't really had a win in a little bit, I should say. He kind of had a controversial split decision last year and then got TKO'd by Brandon Moreno, but he's had a lot of history in this division. Hasn't really been able to crawl his way higher up in the numbers again in a while. Or Steve Erceg, like we were just mentioning, against Pantoja was a huge coming out party. One of the biggest questions we had about him is, on paper and what we've seen on his skills, seemed good. Good jab, good reaction, really good timing and noticing of spacing against people, right? He would always kind of manage his distance, and just times where he sees people lazily walking in, blast jab, blast overhand. He sets up people's reactions. He'll throw shots and see her reacting, play on that again. I think I put all the steps he did to knock out Schnell last time, and it's still fantastic to watch him do it. That he had been setting up and faking the jab, then he would hit right across the body left hook. His left hook is money, right? And just blasted him out dead on that shot, right? Incredible. And the whole question was, will those skills transfer over to the higher end of the division? And against Pantoja, he went life and death with Pantoja, right? He got bloodied up, but Pantoja's a man who wants to berserk you, come forward. And that was also the thought of Erceg is one of those, wants that distance. He doesn't really want to be in the pocket and strike a lot. He wants to set up his combinations when he feels comfortable. And he threw down with Pantoja when he needed to. He intercepted him with elbows. He would hit in combination right there. He'd get hit, throw back. He fought in the grappling every step of the way. He got out of bad positions. He hit his own takedown, right? He had a great double leg. He couldn't maintain it, but Pantoja's, like I said, one of the greatest grapplers of that division ever, right? The fact that he was able to do that kind of just shows he doesn't have the resume yet, but man, did he have it in that fight. He's almost champion and probably is not long for a rematch to go for it after all that.
Well, what's crazy is he was ranked 9, he lost and went up to rank 7.
Yeah. Deserved, man. Deserved.
And I think this fight's going to be real interesting too, because we are going to see if Erceg can repeat that same success. Because, even though he had a great fight against Pantoja, you have to also be able to repeat those things as well, right? Is it a one-off? I don't want to be that guy to say that, but I think what we will see in Kai Kara France is number 4. He has had a late resurgence because he did have a lot of losses early on. I am really interested to see how this goes. I don't know if the height's going to play a role, because the reach is pretty similar. And I think it actually favors Kai Kara, even though he's a smaller guy.
I thought he was 1 inch.
Kai Kara's 5'4". Yeah, the reach is 1 inch for Kai, even though Kai's shorter.
Yeah,
it's 69 to 68. But Steve Erceg is 4 inches taller, and I would say arguably he's probably the better wrestler as well. based on just statistics and looking at how many takedowns he has per round, which is about 1, whereas Kai Kara is about 0.6. I know it's like not that much of a difference, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think he can get down Kai Kara. We've seen Kai Kara go down before and get taken down. So
yeah, he does have some interesting defense there, right? I think in general, this has an interesting matchup. Like I said, Kai Kara France lost his title shot, lost controversial split decision. But he's one of those people who's known to be like well-rounded guy of the division. Mostly striker and does cool things striking. But his grappling wise, you're mentioning, I think Steve Erceg is definitely the more offensive grappler. Kai Kara France has done some cool stuff to get out of takedowns, right? He's been able to like float his leg out in the single legs. He can be on his balance, incredible, right? At some point, there is a maximum that like if you pick someone's leg up high enough, there's only so far and flexible you can do it. But that dude was able to really get out of a lot of bad takedown situations on the floor itself. He has a lot of good reversals. He's really good. He kind of gets pretty slippery with it and really uses like mechanics of that to get people to slip off his back. He really fights the legs and hooks. He will even like really opportunistic on that slipping out, be able to slip back into the back of other people. Now, as I said, he doesn't, he's not extreme, submission threat from there. But I think that does give him a chance where for Erceg, how is it going to match up with him, right? We did see Pantoja beat him out on the ground. That's not really a fair comparison to Kai Kara France on this. Because the striking, I think, is going to be the most interesting challenge for both of them.
100% agree. Because I think Kai Kara throws so many feints and he just throws a lot that I don't know if Erceg is going to have a clear opening to go in for that takedown. And if he is, he's going to get caught with the shot.
Oh, yeah.
Can he take it? Probably. But still, I mean, Kai Kara has also knocked people out. So it's like,
he's I think it's going to be a lot more muscly guy, right? He has that power.
We're going to see a lot of chess. It's going to be a lot of chess. And I think that's also what makes it interesting is that it's going to be a really high energy, a lot of shots thrown, whether it's going for takedowns or punches. I mean, obviously there'll be a lot of punches thrown. But I think it's going to be a really good, exciting match that people, like you said earlier, are not going to be expecting. But I think if you both look back at their fights, Kai Kara always comes to bring it. And he's a fan favorite. Yeah. And, they're fighting in Australia, so it makes sense because he's from New Zealand. So it's really close.
Even if he hits to the chest, I don't think it's too bad because Kai Kara is really one of those guys, like you mentioned, all the feints. He's going to start, throw his jab, throw the leg kick, kind of step off to the sides, really start to build up to get those combinations. And he wants to throw a bomb, right? He wants to set up, just like load up a hand. And then if
he wants to Cody Garbrandt walk away, dude. That's what he wants.
Yeah. He will throw it. And even if like he misses and you're still there in the pocket, he can follow up with combinations, right? That's a very threatening thing for someone like Erceg who really likes that kind of outside pop shot, really smart fighter, right? You have another guy who can really contend with him there. But I think I'm ready for my prediction if you are on this one.
Yeah. I'll go first because honestly, I'm kind of like I'm in a pickle where it's like honestly, like so we haven't even been talking about the odds, but the odds right now is like minus 180 for Erceg and plus 150 for Kai Kara. And it's kind of like I don't want to say it biased me a little bit, but I think after what I've seen against Pantoja and the Pantoja fight, I think I'm leaning more towards Erceg, only because I feel like Pantoja is better than Kai Kara. And even though Kai Kara can be explosive, I just think Erceg is just a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I'm in the recency bias too.
Okay.
But I just think that having more option to go for the takedown and take it to the floor and someone who can fully contend with him, Erceg, I think is going to be able to fully contend with Kai Kara France on the feet.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think there's going to be a washout on any of their sides on that area. I think Kai Kara maybe being a little bit smarter on the feet, just on his like shot selection and doing it might be able to edge him out there. And I think with the extra takedown will be enough to kind of throw off Kai Kara France and get Erceg those rounds.
Right. And so you think it's a decision?
Yes, I think decision. I don't think he can knock out Kai Kara France though. Yeah, that's what I'll I don't think so. I don't think so.
But Kai Kara always has a chance.
He does. This is a fantastic fight I'm excited for because, like I said, I think on my prediction, I just put a bunch of question marks because on their striking, the way Kai Kara sets up everything, builds up its stuff, steps out on the kicks, and then throws in other punches in there. It's just so much cool things he does. Is that can he do stuff like that in the pocket and really crowd? And same way, can he crowd up Erceg? But I think Erceg has shown he's way more willing to throw in that inside and get into that dogfight when he needs to. Like, I don't think I have question in him doing that versus having question of Adesanya doing that in the title fight.
So the third fight, we have Gamrot versus Hooker. Gamrot's 24-2. Hooker's 23-12. Gamrot's 5'10". Hooker's 6 foot. They're both fighting at 155. The reach is in favor for Hooker, and Hooker's a switch stance, whereas Gamrot is a southpaw. And this is a very basic wrestler versus striker matchup. But the takedown average for Gamrot's 5. I think we said like Du Plessis is like 1 something, right? Yeah, this guy's at 5. And looking back at his fights, you would see why. He's a takedown monster. And his only loss is to Beneil Dariush, which I can't take anything from him because Dariush is still. Actually, I think Gamrot's the one where we thought he won that fight, right?
Well, that was the one where we were thinking he was going to. I think Dariush definitely deserved that win in that fight, but Gamrot just went against one of the like oddest great grapplers of the division, where Dariush is an incredible grappler who never really got like offensive wrestling till later, right? Like he's one of those jiu-jitsu wizard people who, you know, because of the game of how that works, you don't really got to have the top wrestling to make it work. But he has so many skills, escapes, reversals. Gamrot hit the wall on that one. But when Gamrot hit other extreme wrestler, Arman Tsarukyan, Gamrot outworked him, right? Like, it got down to those last couple rounds, and Gamrot just didn't stop going for it. You know, Arman is the guy who's supposed to be the kind of stronger guy. You know, he contended with Islam Makhachev in their fight.
Islam, and Gamrot, those are the 3 guys I want to see fighting for that belt. I mean, obviously, Islam's really the champion, but I'm saying those other 2 guys, Gamrot and Arman, I want to see them fight for the belt because I think it'll be a really good, strong wrestling matchup.
I think that is for sure the matchup. Gamrot is trying to, you know, make his argument to get really in there. And 100%. Unfortunately, the last few fights haven't done it for him. Right? He beat Fiziev by technically they gave the TKO, but it's from Fiziev's leg exploding. Right? Like like crushing accident, right? Like unfortunate.
Well, then he beat Dos Anjos, but it was a unanimous decision.
He fought against Dos Anjos, the guy who's allergic to high pressure wrestlers, right? Like the straight up kryptonite of Dos Anjos in welterweight was high pressure wrestlers. In lightweight, high pressure wrestlers, right? It just keeps happening. They keep throwing him in these fights, and Gamrot went to the thing. But with that amazing wrestling, he does cool things. He chain wrestles very well. You know, he's gonna go from. He doesn't really do too many trips, but he really goes for the legs. He goes for double legs, switches to single legs. He will get you down. But this man does not secure. The reason he's at 5 takedowns per round average is because you're going to get up almost assuredly, and he's just going to have to go and throw you down again. And there's at some point, are you just burning away so much energy, constantly Matt returning them, and Matt returning them, and Matt returning them. Right, like he's a cardio monster and keeps going for it.
He is.
But there's a limit to what you can go to in that. And when it comes to on the feet, very simple, right? He doesn't really throw more than a few punches at once unless he's just like swinging. But mostly he tries to keep it a little bit closer. He does, you know, jab cross. He might throw a random, very rarely throw a kick out there, right? But mostly that wrestling is what he wants to do and set up. And you know it's coming, right? That's why
at the top I was like, this is a very classic wrestler versus striker. Whereas on the other hand, you have Dan Hooker, who's a striker, who has a lot of losses. And it's nothing against Dan Hooker. He's a fan favorite. People love to watch him. He's always game in every fight that he's in. I think, unfortunately, though, he's running into a monster that I don't think he's going to be able to handle. And it's not anything against Dan Hooker and his skills and striking, but Dan Hooker isn't an Israel Adesanya.
It's
to say
true,
the
right?
least. And he's lost to guys like Allen and Makhachev, who are strong wrestlers. And he got submitted actually by Makhachev.
Yeah, he got completely run over by Makhachev.
I remember.
But Makhachev with that wasn't even like a fair comparison to do that, which sucks for Hooker, right? Because he's someone who was inching his way to, like, he just wants that title shot. He went life and death with Dustin Poirier against these other strikers. Fantastic, right? He's long guy, and even with him being so long, well, he's in lightweight. He's pretty muscled up, right?
Right.
When he was one division down, he is dying and thin, right?
Right.
But one division up, the dude takes huge shots. I mean, he got blasted out by Chandler, but that's just the power of that.
He's another great wrestler that's not using his wrestling. But sorry, that's besides the point. I think just truly, like, I think in this wrestling striking matchup, I think there are some where I'd say the Dricus and Adesanya, where it's like, I think it can go either way depending on how the first couple rounds go.
Well, I think the biggest thing with that is Dricus does have more striking to go along.
Well, that's fair. Whereas like Gamrot is not as big of a striker, right?
For it. And Hooker does intercept people really well with knees. He loves to knee people. He loves to time that stuff. And does that? Can he do enough damage to Gamrot to tire him out more? Can he do enough body shots? Can he make him have to shoot for such long range that, like, it kind of lets Hooker get more of a chance to break up the hands and not let him chain wrestle? Those are the big questions of this. But realistically, it's hard because even Gamrot didn't look great against Turner, right? He went life and death with Turner.
Another great striker, though. Right?
Yes, great striker,
big, long, tall. He's like 6'2", 6'3" for the division.
Yeah, the dude's huge.
But I think in this instance, because it's only a 3-round fight, I mean, it kind of favors both fighters because I think if it went later, technically Hooker would probably not go so well for him because Gamrot might have more energy in order to hold him down. I don't know if Hooker has that puncher's chance, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no.
And I think to me, it's like either he's still 2 rounds early and just let Gamrot take him down the 3rd round, but that's not going to matter. I don't think Gamrot's going to knock him out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if I'm Hooker, like if I had to put a key to victory, I'm like, you're going to try to take a page out of Izzy's book and you're going to slip and you're going to land and you're going to keep circling. And that's going to be your way to win and try not to get taken down. But I promise you're going to get taken down.
I have a weird prediction for it.
Okay, let's see.
I predict Hooker's going to go for a ghillie or like another like Darce choke or something real dumb and get put on the bottom. Like he's going to be like, I timed this perfect. He's going to like hit a knee on Gamrot when he's shooting in, hit him like in the chest or something and grab it and hold on. And then Gamrot's just going to get on top. Right. And that's going to automatically lose him at least one of the rounds. Right. I think Gamrot, like as much as he's had challenges, I think Hooker hasn't shown that he can take on a wrestler like Gamrot.
Right. And I think for me too, that's why I think you and I are both the same, where I think Gamrot's going to win by decision.
Yeah.
29-28. Calling it. 29-28.
Yeah, no, I
think Hooker wins the round.
That's a good, yeah.
Hooker takes the first round.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. But so we have one more fight, and we don't have this in our notes.
Oh, yeah.
So we got the big boys. This is my favorite division, even though the division's kind of boo-boo right now until John gets back.
Yeah, so you mean when he's about to retire?
Yeah, whatever. It's fine. He's like the only person I want to watch. I don't even want to watch. I don't want to watch him fight Stipe. I'd rather him fight
Aspinall.
Yeah, Aspinall. Thank you.
That's the fight to make.
mean, and Aspinall looked good too. His blades. Oh, that was such a good fight. Fucking ran through that poor guy. But we got Thai big boy Tuivasa, the Shui King, at home. He's 15-7, but he's 6'2". They're both 6'2". He's fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik, or what do you call him?
Rozenstruik?
No. What did you say?
Oh, I call him Rozenstruik.
Rozenstruik.
Due to another podcaster that got it in my head, and there's no way I'm going to turn my mind on that.
So Ty's 15-7. Rozenstruik is 14-5. I was like, let me find the odds here. Oh, mind you, on the last fight, the odds were -340 to +260. So for this fight, it's +180 for Ty and -220 for Rozenstruik, which I think is interesting. The reach is an advantage for Rozenstruik. The leg reach is included as well. But I think this fight personally is very simple, and I know Steven agreed with me because we had talked before we started filming. These are two strikers. I think they literally have a zero. What did I tell you? They have a zero takedown. Is what I saw. Is that what I told you? There's zero takedown average or submission average. So you kind of know what's going to happen. These guys are going to meet in the middle, and someone's getting knocked out in the first round. I think 14 of 15 Ty's wins are by knockout in the first round. And I believe all of Rozenstruik's is in the first round as well, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
He has, I think, a couple
more decisions.
Well,
or later.
Yeah. He has a couple later as well.
Someone's getting knocked out. Someone's getting knocked out. And it's almost funny because like I always think like when I think Derek Lewis, right? It's like I love watching Derek Lewis. You know, my balls is always hot, so I completely like relate to my guy. But you know what Derek Lewis is going to do? He's not going to go in there and try to tap you out. He's not going to go in there and try to wrestle you. He might play like that. He's going to go in there and try to throw an uppercut and knock you out. Ty's the same way. Ty's going to bite down on his mouthpiece, go to the center, and start swinging. So we've seen him do that in every single one of his fights.
Yeah, but this is where, for Mr. Rozenstruik, the reason he got that name from someone else, Jackie Slack, hilarious setup, is there's people he just blasts out, right? There's people he can just, no chance, they just can't take it. There's a lot of times he's real willing to do nothing. He'll sit there and he tries to be, I feel like, too smart of a striker without really having the rest of the finesse and skill for it, which I think leaves it open for someone like Tui to come in a little crazy and just put some pressure on and throw down with Rozenstruik. And if that happens, I'm going to bet on Tuivasa's durability more than Rozenstruik's.
Yeah, I mean, I would for sure take the plus 190. I think it's plus 190 now on him. So plus 180. Like, I take the plus 190 on him all day. You always got to take one dog because the dog is always going to win at some point. And I think this is the one where even if Rozenstruik is out there swinging, I just think Ty has the power. I mean, they both have the power, obviously, but I think he can get it done. And he's taken big shots from Cyril and stayed in there, for, way longer than I thought he should have.
It took a lot. But that's I think Rozenstruik is going to, he's going to have the better timing and setup than Ty. I just think that shot won't immediately blast him out. And
Ty's got the dog, dude. Call it is. Ty's got the dog in him, bro. Ty's going to go in there, fan favorite. I mean, it's good. Ideally, they'll both go in there and just start swinging, and it'll probably be fight of the night, I think. Hopefully, I think that'd be like the best part. I don't know if it'll
last long enough for that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's gonna last long enough for it to be fight of the night.
I'm saying fight of the night for like in the fans where they're like, oh, that was fun to watch. Like not like here's a 50K bonus. Like
I'm going, Kai Car.
I think Erceg. I think the Erceg and Kai Car will be fight of the night. I meant as far as like if I'm watching and I'm like,
oh, this is
that to me was the fight, the highlight.
Some boys going down.
Someone's going out.
Yeah.
If it's not the first round, it's going to be the second round. I don't think they make it to the third round.
I don't think they're getting there. I think by then they're tired. I think Ty is going to want to come in too much, and I think that's going to just start the engagement. Because Rozenstruik, I think, would be okay kind of backing up and not doing as much. I think Ty is going to put some pressure on it, and I think he's going to leave enough openings that Rozenstruik is going to want to punish that, which is just going to start that kind of time in the pocket to get some swings in, and I don't think he can take the shots that Tuivasa can.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we are completely on the same page with this one. It should be a fun fight. I am excited to see it. But very quickly, I wanted to kind of just do like I call it 4 game, but it's not a game, 4 match parlay. And if you don't mind me talking for you, I'll just talk for you as well, if you don't mind, or unless you want to talk. Because I think the only thing we disagreed on was the Dricus and Izzy fight. So I guess I would say like that one is pretty, toss up anyways. So, I would say bet with your heart at that point. I would say Erceg, I'm going Gamrot, and I would do Ty for the dog on that one. And I don't know what the payout is off the top of my head, but if you were going to bet on 4 fights for do a parlay, that's what I'd definitely recommend is, Dricus and Izzy, it's 50-50. It's up to you. Erceg for sure, Gamrot for sure. I'm taking Ty. Ty the dog at plus 190 for sure.
Man, that is a rough parlay. That is a rough with because 2 50-50s. I guess that's what makes probably make it better money for it because dang. You gotta feel
I think the big fight will be
the
Izzy. I just don't know if I like Dricus at plus 110 though. I don't know. Ideally, you wouldn't even bet on that fight, and you just bet on the other 3.
Yeah, it's 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking around, everybody. We're going to be trying to do this a lot more. It was a summer. We were on summer break. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We are going to be doing UFC separate from our boxing, so we just wanted to let everybody know that. And it sounds like we're going to be making our own Instagram for the Unfiltered Breakdown itself. It'll still be all under the Encinas Unfiltered banner. You can still check it out on our website, and it'll still be on our YouTube. And then Encinas Unfiltered will still be posting stuff for the Unfiltered Breakdown until we can get it running. But the goal for Steven and I is to have the Instagram running on its own. That way we can post things more related to combat sports and separate that from the fantasy football that will be coming up very shortly for those of you that are football fans. And then the interviews will kind of be a combination of both. It'll be all athletes across all sports.
Hey, man, I'm just excited for the fights, man. I'm ready to see some crazy stuff happen.
And I think we should maybe film some reactions too. Like, I think that'd be sick. Like, just like selfie reactions that we can like post into like the story and stuff. That'd be fun.
I can't wait for I called it on one of them.
I'm waiting
for Hooker to go for that guillotine and get stuck on the bottom for the rest of the round.
Oh, man.
I just feel it. I sense it. He's gonna be like, "Oh, I know he's coming in for the shot. I'm gonna catch him in this."
And now that you said it, it's gonna happen. So, but thank you for sticking around, everybody. Until next time, peace.
Peace out.